Republican Senator Tom Coburn, he keeps his eye on how the government's spending your money, and he is not happy with what he sees. His latest waste book was recently released, detailing over 100 examples of wasteful government spending from coast to coast. Now, we took a look at a few of the more, well, ridiculous examples.
Florida eager to use over $1 million of funds from the federal, quote, Safe Routes to School program. Indian River County officials began a 2.5-mile sidewalk, but they didn't have the right-of-way approvals to complete the most important part. Now, that's the part that actually went near schools or neighborhoods. Now, construction began anyway so as not to lose the federal dollars.
We ended up with nothing going through the section that we thought was the primary reason for the grant money to be given to this community in the first place.
Now, the result is what some are calling a sidewalk to nowhere. Now, it runs along a highway in an industrial area with few, if any, pedestrians.
You know, the critics say it really isn't serving a purpose of a sidewalk because it's not really going anywhere where there's going to be a substantial pedestrian foot traffic.
There's no real schools around here, and I can't think of a reason why a school child would be walking on this road.
So much for providing a safe route to school.
The access to the sidewalk is across the railroad track. So it doesn't make sense to go past the school to get to the sidewalk.
Now the county has plans to ask the feds for another $300,000 to try and obtain the right-of-way and complete the project. Some residents are still not interested in giving up a piece of their property for the ill-conceived project.
The times I've been out here, I have yet to see anybody really walking on it, and I don't get the sense that from the Gifford residents that people are inclined to.
Michigan local resident Gabe Hudson snapped this picture of something that he found astounding: sidewalk ramps to nowhere. Now, officials told him that they had to put in the $10,000 ramps even though there's no sidewalk. Why? To qualify for federal highway funds. I hope nobody in a wheelchair actually tries to use this ramp, since it would lead them right into a telephone pole. Ohio, more than 500,000 of your taxpayer dollars have found their way to this rural area courtesy of the U.S. Department of Transportation. Now, the grant is going to repair a bridge. No, not this one. That actually gets used by people and vehicles. This one, right next to it, the Stevenson Road Covered Bridge, will cost $650,000 to restore, even though it is not attached to a road, a path, a park, or anything else. Now, the bridge had been used until 2003 when it was moved to make room for a new $650,000 modern bridge. Repairs will cost more than the town's total annual road budget of $600,000, but it's okay because it's mostly being paid for by you. Oklahoma, the Lake Murray State Park Airport gets about one flight a month, has no electricity, but it's kept open for one very important reason: to take in federal tax dollars. Now, the airstrip is co-owned by the State Tourism Department, which runs the park, the lodge, the golf course nearby.
We played here all the time, but I haven't seen many planes land. Maybe 2 or 3 this year, and that's it.
Now, the Tourism Department has tried to close the airport for 6 years.
The airstrip, it can't be expanded. It's really a bit of an eyesore. It's just something we'd like to see go away.
But that would mean giving up the federal handout. It's kept open to get the automatic annual payment from the FAA.
If at all possible, we want to avoid having to give $184,000 back to Uncle Sam.
Now, that's just part of the $750,000 total that the tiny airport has taken in just in the past 5 years. Now, less than 1% of that, about $5,000, has been spent on the airport itself. Now, they were supposed to be used for updated runway lighting and runway rehab, but it's unclear how it's been spent because with no electricity, well, there can be no runway lighting.
No money has been wasted at Lake Murray because basically what we've done with that money is done the bare minimum.
Joining me now, Oklahoma Senator Tom Coburn. Senator, good to see you. Welcome back, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, Sean. Great to be with you.
All right, well, it's pretty obvious here. I mean, every one of these I love the sidewalk to nowhere. I mean, pretty basic, isn't it?
Well, I think the thing that's disturbing, we only listed 100. I could have listed thousands. I didn't want to waste the time in doing it. But we've got hundreds of billions of dollars every year that's wasted on things that don't fit with common sense and don't fit with prudence that we're spending money on. And I go after things in my own state as well as everywhere else across the country.
Yeah.
And we're borrowing money we don't have to spend on things we don't need.
All right, so we got sidewalks to nowhere. We got bridges that we're rebuilding that we certainly don't need. We got airports that nobody lands at.
Right.
They're going to fix the lighting on an airport that doesn't have electricity. That's how insane this gets. The question is, I've been following this for years. Citizens Against Government Waste, they've been chronicling this for years. The country has $16 trillion in debt, and it never gets solved. The problem never gets solved. Why does it keep going on?
A couple of reasons. One is America keeps sending the same career politicians back to Washington every year whose number one goal is to get reelected, not fix the government. Number two is oversight is hard work, and it means you have to actually change things, and you have to stand up and say you're not for spending more money, you're for getting rid of the waste. And I think the third reason probably, Sean, is there's not a thimble full of common sense in Washington, whether it's the elected representatives or the people that are administering these programs.
See, every one of these dollars, how much would you estimate, let me ask you this, how much would you estimate where we are wasting a year on pork barrel projects like this?
Well, if I could describe it a different way, if you took waste, stupidity, duplication, in other words, multiple programs doing exactly the same thing, probably $250 billion a year.
$250 billion a year we're taking from hardworking Americans, and we're throwing it down the sewer so that politicians can say, hey, I brought this money back to my district. Now, there's a lot of talk about greedy, selfish, rich people, and they need to pay their fair share. What do we say about greedy, power-hungry politicians that waste hard-earned taxpayer dollars? Are they worse than the greedy, rich people that we often hear demonized?
Well, I think the problem is we're very adept at not making transparent what we're doing. And so consequently, what is actually going on is never revealed to the American public. I think what has to be is, let me give you another example. There's $800 billion worth of grants that come out from the federal government a year across all agencies, everything, $800 billion. That's twice what it was 11 years ago. And so a lot of people want to spend that money because where does that grant money go? Grant monies go back into the states. And so as soon as you start cutting back in a prudent way that do things that would make sense, you're going to have constituencies saying we didn't get our money.
It's bringing us to the brink, Senator. It's going to happen. Thank you for being with us.
It is. Thank you, Sean.